Okay, Nate.
You're rolling, buddy.
Hey, so my father, my father, Albany, New York. That's where I'm from. Albany, New York. It's north of New York City, and it's the capital of New York State. So anyway, my dad becomes the pastor of the Italian Christian Church in Albany. And he wants me to play the piano. So he gives me piano lessons at the Conservatory of Music, the Conservatory of Music. And from Stanley Hummel, who taught down at Juilliard. Yeah, Stanley Hummel. So anyway, I take lessons and I'm tearing it up, man. I went through 3 or 4 books in a year. It was all Italian people, and it was bilingual, and they sang some songs in Italian, and then they'd sing in English, and then my father, because he knew the language, Italian, and there was a guy, I think it was his Nathan de Jezer's grandfather, Hannibal, used to call the same song every week. We knew what song it was going to be. But he was a great guy. Anyway, so my father became the pastor of the church, and he wanted me to play the piano in church. So I'm about 14 years old. I don't know nothing about, I couldn't even play Amazing Grace or on the hill far away, the old rugged cross, or any of those things. So anyway, I went to the conservatory, and around the corner, the church was on J Street, and this place, where they taught, Stanley Hummel also taught in Juilliard in New York. He was huge. This guy was an amazing teacher. My sister went to take lessons from him. I got to tell you this. My sister went to take lessons, and he says, "Go home. You'll never be as good as your brother." He told my sister that. Yes. That was terrible that he would do that, but that's the kind of guy he was. Anyway, so I don't know where I am, but I'm going to finish the story anyway. So so the guy is teaching me, and I'm going through 3 or 4 books, and I'm doing it like a maniac. I mean, I'm practicing 4 or 5 hours a day, because we live next to the church, and I could go in there and use different pianos. It was great. But I had a favorite, and I had the bench. It's one of those old benches with the screw down thing, It's round on top. I use it to paint in my paint room now. Anyway, so I never did play in church. My father told me, "Don't come to church if you're going to grow that beard. What do you think you are, some hippie or something?" So my father kicked me out of the house. He wouldn't. So I started playing, pop stuff and jazz and all that stuff. So anyway, this one summer when I graduated from high school, I got a job. I got to tell you this story. This is a tearjerker for me. Hope I get through it. My father was very Italian and strict, Anyway, I got a job up in Lake George at a summer resort, and it was a little hotel called the Windsor Hotel in Elizabethtown, New York. It was outside of Saratoga on the way up there. Anyway, so I had to play dinner music, which was not a problem. I practiced while people were eating, and then during the day I had to be a lifeguard at a pool. I said, "I can't even swim." He said, "That's okay, just sit here." So there were 3 of us. It was a trio, the Moonglow Trio. Marvin and Nick was a Greek guy, played the bass, big upright bass, and Marvin played sax and clarinet, and me on the piano. anyway, so that was my first day. So I'm playing dinner music, and one day I see my father and my mother out there having dinner. My father said, if you go to that place, don't ever come home. That's it for you, pal. Yes, he kicked me out of the house. My father was weird. So the next thing I know, I'm playing some Chopin or something, and my father is out there and my mother, and they're having dinner, and I go, whoa. So I went, afterwards, my mother was so sweet. She's just a sweetheart. My dad was tough. So anyway, he in his mind, he thought it was some joint. You know, I'm playing at a joint. And yeah, and he didn't like it. So he said, if you go there, never come home. I said, okay. So they picked me up and I went. The whole summer, this is like the Labor Day weekend before we went, you know, I had to go home or someplace. So he comes up and he says, and they were so nice, and my father apologized and everything. It was great, yeah. So anyway, my father had me arrested one time for taking the car. For taking his car, Nathan. You know, you don't know, Albany, Troy, Schenectady, and Rensselaer was like across the river. Well, I was playing the piano with some band, and I had to get over there to the Rensselaer, and so I took my dad, I said, Dad, can I borrow the car? No. So I had a key to the car, I took it anyway. And he called the cops, and he said, somebody stole my car, and I know who it was. You better get him, and I know where he is. Yes, and he told them that I stole the car. And so I called him from down the street, down the jailhouse. At the end of J Street was a police precinct. That's where the church was, on J Street, and that's where we lived. Anyway, I said, come and get me, I'm in jail. He said, I'll pick you up in the morning on my way to work. He let me spend the night there, yes. I'll pick you up in the morning on the way to work, and we'll talk about it. That was it. Okay, Nate, what's next? What do you want me to do now? I need some more water. Oh, okay.
You're doing good. I can't
What
believe
else
you
do
did
I
that.
need?
Isn't that crazy about his dad? Do we have questions?
You
Okay, talk
ventured
about
down
your
to
dad.
Nashville. How'd you get to Nashville? The whole,
The Nashville thing?
yeah, I mean, just.
Yeah.
Where's those questions, Nick?
So anyway, I thought I was going to be a.
Oh, one more time? Here we go.
I thought I was going to be a vocal teacher. So I went, I went to Juilliard for a little while, and I couldn't, I flunked out and got in trouble. And then I went to Fredonia and flunked out of there or never. And so anyway, I went to this Christian school, and that's where I met my first wife, college, out in Missouri, Springfield. And I married her, and she's the mother of my first three kids. Tony, Joe Antoinette, Joey, my son, Gina Lee, married and named after her mother. Her name was Mary Lee. So anyway, I had three kids.
Oh, one more time? Here we go.
I thought I was going to be a vocal teacher. So I went, I went to Juilliard for a little while, and I couldn't, I flunked out and got in trouble. And then I went to Fredonia and flunked out of there or never. And so anyway, I went to this Christian school, and that's where I met my first wife, college, out in Missouri, Springfield. And I married her, and she's the mother of my first three kids. Tony, Joe Antoinette, Joey, my son, Gina Lee, married and named after her mother. Her name was Mary Lee. So anyway, I had three kids. So I started playing. I went to a school down in Tallahassee at Florida State. And down there, Tony was born and Joey was born in Tallahassee at the hospital there. Gina was born in Knoxville. Anyway, so all I wanted to do was write songs and be a musician. I didn't care about any of that other stuff, you know, I mean, really. It was just a way to, you know. So I went to, from Florida, I was teaching school, or I wanted to be a school teacher, teach at school. And I went to Knoxville, or I went to Atlanta first to play the piano for the Harmoniers. They had a guy that was playing the piano and singing. His name was Jimmy Hall. He was singing lead and playing the piano. So they said he wanted to stand up and sing, and so they hired me to play the piano. Here I was with these old guys, Bob Cruz and Happy Edwards, and Low Note Hilton was the bass singer, and Jimmy and me. So I was 19 years old, I think, skinny, and I was starving, and you know, I didn't know anything. And these guys wanted me to drive the car and play the piano, keep her mouth shut. That's it. I learned a lot from those guys. 6 months later, I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, playing for the Imperials. So when I'm playing for the Prophets, Ed Hill and the Prophets up in Knoxville. So I'm writing a lot of songs, and Jake Hess, who was with the Statesmen at the time, was organizing a group called the Imperials in Nashville. It was Cheryl Nielsen, Jake was singing lead, Gary McSpadden from Texas, and Armin Morales, and Henry Slaughter was playing the piano for the original group. So anyway, Jake says, I want to publish one of your songs. Really? Okay. So I don't know anything about that. And he says, the Statesmen are going to do it. I know, worry who I. Yeah, so he recorded it and published it. And so I guess he kept me in mind. He liked, to be in the Imperials, you had to be a certain height and you had to have black hair. And, you know, it didn't matter if you could sing or play, you just have to look the part, you know. And so anyway, I got the job to take Henry's place, to be the piano player and the arranger and whatever else I was doing. So I did that. And then Jake left the group and Gary left the group, and Jim Murray came in to take Cheryl's part. And then we had to hire a baritone and a lead singer. Jake left when Gary left because Jake was sick. So we hired Terry Blackwood and a guy from California named Roger Wiles. And it was me playing the piano. So, whew, man, we had 93 dates canceled because it was Jake Hess and the Imperials. And Jake wasn't with the group anymore, so they just canceled all those dates. It was awful. So we had to regroup, and we did. We became a contemporary group. We stopped being Southern gospel and getting a short haircut and wearing a suit and, you know, the mohair suit and the tie and matching and all that. And I stopped doing the Pepe Le Pew mustache and penciling it in, you know. Pepe Le Pew, they used to call me. So anyway, I stopped doing that, and we started being hip and growing our hair, and, you know, and it opened up a lot of doors. The contemporary, we were right on the edge of the contemporary Christian movement, contemporary Christian music movement. It was started in California. There was a guy out there that wants to take credit for it, Larry Norman, and his symbol was the one-way sign. And it was, you know, and we put that on our cover of our record, time to get it together, and he sued us. He sued us for using the finger. I said, come on, Larry, you can't sue us for using the finger. I mean, this is a finger. We all got fingers. You're going to sue everybody in the world for, I mean, come on. Yes. So after we argued about it for a while, he dropped it. So they had a big festival in California. It was Larry Norman, Barry McGuire, Love Song, second chapter of Acts, and you're not going to believe who played the drums for us. Michael O'Mardian played drums. Yes, and then we sang Jesus Made Me Higher Than I've Ever Been Before in the key of A that he wrote. He wrote that song. And we did it, and it was unbelievable. It was one of our sugar sticks, you know, at the time. We called it sugar sticks. And anyway, we had a great, we were on the edge of contemporary music. They had a big festival in California, and they wanted some East Coast representation. There wasn't anybody here but us, the Imperials, and we looked contemporary because we had long hair and we dressed weird. You know, I wish you could see some of my outfits. I mean, tapestry boots. I had boots up to here, and capes and leather and stuff. And so anyway, they invited us to go to California, to come to California. And we did, and we blew them all away. Contemporary Christian music. That was it. Okay, what else you got?
Hey, wait a minute. While he's on that, tell that story about the balcony and the Masons
Oh, yeah?
not getting you a white suit.
That's great.
I love that.
When I first joined Jake Hess and the group, we're at the Medina Temple in Chicago. It was during the week, it was like a, I don't know what it was. It was a Shriner thing. What do you call it? Mason, Freemason. Anyway, on the weekends, it was for rent. There was a big hall, and it had a balcony. And so here we are, the Imperials come out, and we're all dressed different colored jackets, and Jake, no encores. And so anyway, they're all got white double-breasted suits on. I didn't have a white suit. I had a black pinstripe, Italian-looking suit, you know, hey. So I wore this suit, and Jake kidded me, and he put his hand on my shoulder, and he said, hey, and if you like the way this guy plays, he said, we might get him a suit next week or something like that, like ours. So after the second or third song, some guy stands up in the balcony and yells, give the kid a suit. Yeah, it was great. It was great. I loved it. Anyway, that was one of the stories. I could tell you some other, but.
Love it.
These are great.
Joe, these are great stories. These are great stories.
Nah.
Give the guy a suit.
To give the guy a suit, right? That's
Give the
funny.
guy a suit.
That just drew attention to, more to you. What's all the questions?
What else? Do I have anything else on there? Did I? What?
Talk a little bit about, just from your.
Hey, where's your girlfriend? Or what's her name?
Heather.
Heather. Sit where I can see you, Heather. You know what I mean?
Heather, you sit
I speak.
here.
I talk a lot better when I see pretty girls.
Heather, sit over here. It's your turn.
It's your turn.
Sit here.
Talk a little bit
We'll
about.
take shifts.
The atmosphere
So
change
he
as
feels
far
like
as.
he's talking. Yeah. Okay, now
You
you're talking.
guys were going from pretty much
Hey,
Southern gospel and
my
then
water.
also
Thanks.
You're
to
welcome.
all these hippies showing up and,
Oh, wow. But some of them I can't tell. I
well,
can't.
yeah. But, I mean, some of that was pretty, I mean, you had to go from, with Jake and that was pretty, you were playing probably churches.
Oh, yeah.
Very conservative and.
Well, you want me to keep
I
going,
like
Nate?
that look, Joe.
Yeah,
It's okay?
I like that. Just relax, yeah. I like that.
So, Jake Hess had so many friends in the business from being in the business, in the gospel music, Southern gospel music business for so long. He had a lot of friends. And I don't know if it was general knowledge, but there were 4 or 5, maybe 5 or 6 promoters that booked the whole United States. There was a guy up in North named Lloyd Orrell who had all the northern cities. Then there was a guy in Texas that had all the Texas, like Fort Worth and Dallas and Amarillo. His name was W.B. Nowlin. And then there was a lady on the West Coast that handled California and Oregon and Portland and Washington State. Her name was Polly Grimes, who later came to work for Jake. Anyway, yeah, so I mean, there were those kind of promoters. And they booked, when you booked, you sat down with them and you booked the whole next year. I'm gonna do 17 concerts next year and I want you on 8 of them. Okay, which ones? And then they tell you the weekend, you write them down. And that's how you did that. So when Jake left the group, 93 dates were canceled. Yes, 93, it was crazy. But all those guys, because it was called Jake Hess and the Imperials, so Jake Hess wasn't gonna be there, so they canceled. And they were Jake's friend anyway. So we had to prove ourselves. And one of the best things, I was thinking, this has nothing to do with the Imperials.
That's okay.
This is a prophet story. So there was a guy named Wally Fowler who every month would do Birmingham, Atlanta, and Nashville at the Grand Ole Opry. Yeah, down at the Ryman. And so this one time, Hovey was double booked. And he said, but I got a great group that's gonna take our place. And I'll even introduce them. He introduced us on a reel-to-reel Wallensack. You remember those Wallensack tape recorders? Yeah, it was a little reel. And he said, hi, this is Hovey Lister. And this is a great group, and sorry we can't be with you tonight, or whatever. But you'll enjoy these guys, and talked about, we had a big tenor singer. The Italian and gospel music at the time. So anyway, we went out and we tore up the place. I mean, it was unbelievable. But to get Hovey Lister, and I don't even have that. Maybe Ed has it. I don't have it. But he introduced us, and we went out and we tore it up, and it was great. Enjoyed that. Okay, so then I'm going to fast forward now back to the Imperials, okay? Oh, wow. So Jake, I got so many stories about Jake Hess and Gary, and we had a big time. So this one, I got to tell you this. This one time in the summertime, we had a booking agent. At that time, Jake thought it was best to have a booking agent and book yourself, So we had a booking agent. They booked us on every day at an electric co-op in Kentucky. And so we did these co-op dates in Kentucky on a flatbed truck, and we had to go get a piano sometime. It was an upright or a spinet, hardly ever was tuned, or a baby grand. It was some piece of junk. I was gonna say crap, but I didn't.
You can say crap.
You were gonna say shit.
Yeah, you were gonna say that.
So anyway, this one day we went and got this piano out of this lady's house, and there were no black keys on it. The kids broke off all the black keys. So I said, I can't play this thing. It's no any. Oh yeah, you can play and see. So I had to transpose everything, and if I wanted a B flat, I had to stick my finger like that. Anyway, at the end, somehow, I don't know what happened, but the piano fell off of the truck and broke. It broke into pieces. I don't know how that happened, but we never did get it back to the lady because it fell off the truck. What can I tell you? Maybe this helped. So the second thing I remember from that time was we're going down the road and we're late going to a rural electric co-op thing. And you're not gonna believe this. So every time they did this thing, they would have a beauty contest, like Miss Co-op of certain county or something, Miss Electric Co-op. Nobody ever won these contests because these were all dogs, believe me. So we would vote, and we were part of the judging, and we had to play music while they pranced across the stage. Oh, that was a long day, believe me. So anyway, so now we're going down to the next date, and we're following this guy in a tractor. He's got a tractor, and on the back of the tractor is a wagon or a trailer with hay. And over the top of that hay is a big rope holding the hay on to the trailer. And this guy is driving like 15 miles an hour. And we can't pass him for hours. I mean, whew. And the driver says, well, if I ever get a where I can pass him, I'll pass him, but I can't pass him right now. And then vroom, and then the car will come by. So I said, if you pull up next to him, I can lean out the window and cut the rope. And then we'll have some fun watching him in the mirror. And so sure enough, the guys are holding my feet and I'm leaning out the back window and this guy, and we're going down this 2-lane highway, and the bus is overtaking this guy 15 miles an hour, and I'm cutting the rope. Sure enough, when I did, the pile of it leaned, and then they all fell all over the road, and this guy. So we're watching in the rear view mirrors, and yay! And we give the guy a big applause. And that was it, and then we pulled away. I mean, there are so many of those kind of stories, it's just ridiculous. And I can verify them all, no problem. Okay.
Talk a little bit about the early days of Elvis and the Imperials and Southern Gospel Music and how that all came together. And
Oh, yeah?
yeah, definitely. You got to hit that. Important.
Elvis. So Elvis came to town, and RCA would call us, and they would book us, and they'd say, what are you doing the week of so-and-so? So this one year, we do a Christmas album with Elvis in the middle of July. And they've got the Studio B is decorated with a Christmas tree and lights and presents. So Elvis shows up about 11 p.m. after we were there from 6. And they said, we're gonna pay you by the hour instead of the session, from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. all night. So that's the most money I ever made in my life. Anyway, that week. So Elvis shows up about 11 o'clock and he wants to play Santa Claus. And so I says, I got my eye on that big tall present in the corner. He says, okay, you like that one? And so he told all the guys to watch. It was a vacuum cleaner. It was a vacuum cleaner. And I said, I don't need this vacuum cleaner. He says, well, it's too late, Moscheo. He called me Moscheo. And I called him E. And so it was a vacuum cleaner. Anyway, so we did these sessions, and from those sessions, it came time to go to Las Vegas in '69 for Elvis. After his comeback special in '68, they booked him in Vegas. Colonel Parker's, excuse me, Colonel Parker's office would call and book the talent, and Elvis was in charge of the music. So, Lord have mercy. We were second on the list. They called the Jordanaires first. And the Jordanaires said, I'm sorry, we're busy. we're too busy. We got too many sessions. But it took me about maybe 30 seconds, and I said, yes, we'll do it. And I sold it I didn't get enough money, and the guys were mad at me. But I was anxious to do it. It was the best thing we ever did. So we go to Vegas, and the way Elvis liked to work is there was a producer here in town, Felton Jarvis, who produced the records, and he said, we have to learn 50 songs for the show. 50? I mean, how many is he gonna do? Well, he might do 18 to 20, but you need to know 50 because you don't know what 50 he's gonna do. Okay, so we had a book with every song, and Elvis is the way he sang it. So we listened, and then we rehearsed with Felton here in Nashville. Then we flew out to California to meet the Sweet Inspirations. And at that time, there were 4 of them, and Cissy Houston, Whitney Houston's mother, was singing in the group. And so we rehearsed with them, and now it was time to meet Elvis. So we flew to Vegas, and we're in a hotel room in Vegas. I think it's part of one of the movies. And Elvis comes in, and we all go crazy because it's our first time. So he wanted to get the voices and the band, James Burton, and at the time, Larry Mahobarak was playing piano, and Ronnie Tutt was playing drums. Anyway, it was a really great group, and James Burton. And so we rehearsed with Elvis, the band, the singers, and now it's time to add the orchestra. So we go from LA to Vegas, and this is like a 2-week period. Then we go to Vegas, and we add the orchestra. We're on stage, and Joe Gershio is conducting this huge orchestra, 38 pieces. And you got the band, and you got the singers, and Elvis. It's great. And so he put it together. And then we got a set list every night. And we were up on a riser, and in front of us were the Sweet Inspirations, and then Elvis was down lower. So we were always looking at him. It was great. It was just a wonderful time. It came time and so the guys said, we need more money. We're working too hard. So I'd go and I'd try to, Elvis wouldn't talk to me. I got to tell you some of those stories of the gifts. So after every engagement in Las Vegas, Priscilla and Elvis would either have us a watch or a bracelet or sunglasses or rings or whatever made in real gold, and they'd give them to us as thank you very much. And so I've got all of that stuff in a lockbox someplace waiting for my kids to go, my grandkids, my great-grandkids to go to college. Anyway, it was just a wonderful time in my life, and I'm still fortunate enough to be healthy enough to be traveling around the world, and we're still doing Elvis shows. This time we're doing the Elvis on a big Jumbotron. It's 35 feet, and all you see is Elvis and his voice. And the rest of the music is live, and we're singing to a click track. The drummer hears it, and he hears a click track, and he counts it off, and they start. I don't know how they do it, but they synchronize all of the live music on stage with Elvis's voice, and we go around the world, and we're still doing it, you know. And I tell all my friends that the Europeans love history. America loves the future. They have no regard for history. especially with Elvis. So, anyway, in Europe, all of our work is in Europe at this time because they like the history, they like to see the old timers. It's good. It's good for me. I'm enjoying it. Yeah.
His love for gospel music, Joe?
He loved gospel music. He knew every singer, every song, every arrangement, and I wrote a book called The Gospel Side of Elvis in 2007. Became a really bestseller. And I tell everybody, he didn't, you know, if you have a recording contract with Sony or Warner Brothers, it's like a 7-album thing. So at the end of the 6th album, you want to get out because you want to do, and so you say, well, okay, let's do a quick hymn album or something, you know, and or a Christmas album. We'll do a Christmas album or a quick hymn album, and we'll fulfill our contract, and then we'll be done. Elvis did it on purpose. He did 74, and I got them in my book. There's a thing in the back of the book, lists all of the titles and the years that he recorded them and what album and all that. Anyway, he did it on purpose because he loved it. He loved the singers, the arrangements, the songs meant a lot to him. A lot of the songs he sang in church, in the Assembly of God Church, when he was growing up. So, that's it.
So how did you guys get that first phone call? Who called you first about Elvis?
Who called me?
Who recommended you, and who called you first?
Well, because this is back to Elvis, because we were, you know, we had recorded with him, and he knew us, and he liked us, the way we looked, and just everything about us. The Jordanaires didn't want to go because they were busy in the studio. And I talked to Gordon, who died recently, but I talked to him, and he said, well, we thought it was a one-time shot. It turned out to be repetitive kind of thing. So Colonel Parker's a guy named Tom Diskin, D-I-S-K-I-N, he lived here in Nashville, and he called me and he said, we'd like you to come to Las Vegas in '69, July of '69. Well, we're booked, but okay, we'll see. I didn't even call the guys. I said yes. And that was it. So Tom Diskin called, and that's the way all that happened. I don't know if I answered it or not.
How many years?
How many years
How
did?
many years were you there?
Well, we were there 3.5 years from, but we had worked with him about 5 years because we started recording, you know, and I was there for he won the other thing that I need to tell you, that Elvis only won 3 Grammy albums. He had 3 Grammys for his gospel albums or for his gospel music. And the Imperials were part of all of those. So that's a good thing. I had to tell you this funny thing. This guy comes to my house, my IT guy, and I got plaques up on the wall that I'm a Grammy winner with the Imperials. Because the Imperials, we won 4 Grammys. Anyway, he says, where are your Grammy Awards? I said, I don't know. They're in a box in the garage. I don't know where they are. He said, well, let's go get them. I said, are you kidding? I said, we can't go out in that garage. We'll get killed. And so we go out, and he starts looking for stuff. He's looking for the awards. This guy's crazy. He says, don't you know how to display things? You put the Grammy with the nomination plaque. And I said, what do I care? That's a long time ago.
Joe,
Okay, what else?
you were part of this whole formation of contemporary Christian music.
Oh, yeah.
You were an artist, and then also you crossed sides and you became in the business part of it too. Can you kind of like talk about when was the beginning of that era, contemporary Christian music, and then talk a little bit about how you left the artist area, you went to the business part.
Okay.
And some of the greats, and some of the shapers too, Joe, that were, you know, like, they're not here today, Bob McKenzie, people like that were very much a part of the shape and growth of our industry today. And where is it today? Have you seen a big change? You know?
Where is it?
Where is
We all have opinions about where it is. So, as a gospel singer, I'm called on to do a lot of things, and that I guess age has a way of doing that. Anyway, I show up. You know what? I got inducted into the Gospel Music Association Hall of Fame. The first time I got inducted was with the group, the Imperials, and then I was inducted as an individual for my contribution to the gospel music industry. And so I'm getting inducted into the Hall of Fame, and I told a story that I think is funny. So I'm on the board representing the artists in the industry on the GMA board. And so I get a plaque, a glass thing, and I got it on my shelf. And it says, for 20 years, perfect attendance at our board meetings. And the guy calls me up, the president. He calls me up and he makes this presentation to me, and I'm in the conference room at BMI. It's a big conference room. It's huge. Anyway, so I've got this thing, and I'm thinking I'm supposed to give a speech or a thank you, but I says I'm embarrassed by this award. And the president said, "Why are you so embarrassed?" I wouldn't have given it. I said, "Well, I'm embarrassed that I didn't have anything better to do than show up at these meetings every time." The guy, yes. I said, "I'm so embarrassed that I didn't have anything better than to come to these stupid meetings every time. I got perfect attendance for 20 years? I couldn't believe it." Yeah, anyway. So I did that, and I thanked them all, and I got it on the piano, or I got it on the étagère in my Joe room, in my man cave at the house. So anyway, I was a big part of when contemporary Christian music, Southern gospel music, I used to produce the Duff Awards. I got to tell you this story. And so I'm in the wings, and I've got my clipboard, and I'm following. So Stryper, you all probably don't even remember Stryper. You do? Stryper. And they go out on stage, and they got this drum kit that is a revolving drum kit. I think they got it from the Newsboys or something. But anyway, they did this whole thing. Anyway, and so I'm looking out, and I can see J.D. Sumner. I see some of the Southern gospel guys in the second row. And they're looking up at, I mean, they're flabbergasted by this. They cannot believe that this is going on. And I think some of them left. Yeah. It was, and so there's always a division about Southern gospel and contemporary gospel on the West Coast. And so it was back and forth, and who was right and who was wrong. And I think it's a lot like the Academy of Country Music Awards and the Country Music Awards, Nashville and Bakersfield, because you had Bakersfield with Owens, what's his name? Buck Owens, and yeah. And you had all that thing going on out there, and then you got, so anyway, yeah, and I was happy to say that we walked right down the middle, and we were a quartet. We had a band at the time. I had a band, so we have a band, and it was really hard. Sometimes we were booked on, we never canceled any of our dates. We did, if we would honor, even though we were getting 10 grand a night, if the guy said, "Well, yeah, but we're gonna pay you $1,000 about a year ago," we showed up. So this guy, we were at the Del City, Oklahoma Starlight Crusade or something. Bailey Smith was the preacher at the time. So we get there, and it's, we're contemporary, and we look real scuzzy, and we had a pickup band that we picked up in Nashville, and we drove a van to Oklahoma City. So Sunday morning, Bailey says, well, you got to sing 2 songs in the Sunday morning service, and then you can do your contemporary thing Sunday night. Okay. So Sunday morning, we pinned our hair back, and we wore a suit, and we were the Gospel Brothers, and we sang "He Touched Me" and something else. And then, so while we're gone, the guys, the band, this is the craziest thing, Nathan, I don't even know. So while we were on stage singing, the band takes the van, and at the time, you couldn't buy Coors beer in east of the Mississippi. I don't know if you are old enough to remember that or not, but you couldn't buy Coors beer east of the Mississippi. You had to buy it. So they went out, they all loved Coors beer, so it was like the thing if you had Coors beer. So they loaded up the underneath or the back of the, yeah. So it comes time to set up for the show Sunday night, and we changed clothes and let our hair down. And the brothers of the church want to help the guys set up the PA system. So they go out to the van, and all they see is this Coors beer. And so they ran in to tell Bailey Smith. Bailey calls me in. What's going on? I said, what do you mean? What are you talking about? So I had to do some heavy duty talking. And we finally, but they wouldn't let us bring our instruments in. We had to do it. Yeah, it was just very strange. So we went through a lot of that in the early days, trying to make our transformation from contemporary to Southern gospel to do our thing. But we were very fortunate in that we could do both. There were a lot of guys, or a lot of the groups were just Southern gospel, and that's all they ever wanted to be. And there were a lot of contemporary that never could sing gospel, because I can't imagine it, to tell you the truth. And we had a big time. I don't know if I answered your question. That's funny about the Coors beer, isn't it?
You know, when I used to do that, we lived in Chattanooga,
The Coors beer?
and I would go to Texas, and I would load up, I would have this.
Because a lot of things happened during that period of time, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Before BMI, right?
Well, yeah, before, and that's where I met Francis, who,
Did you know Felice and Boudreaux from Knoxville?
oh, Felice and Boudreaux, yeah. Oh, I got a story about them if you want me to tell that.
When did you meet them the first time?
Yeah, I met them in Hendersonville because I went out to their house with Francis, and Francis said, we want to hire one of your boys. And so Dane and Dell come out, and Francis doesn't even know which guy she's going to hire. And Felice, the mother, says, one of you guys, which one of you want to do it? And Dell said, well, I'll do it. Dell's the president of the thing, and he's retiring next year. I mean, it's incredible. Yeah, Del Bryant. Oh my God, Felice and Boudreaux, boy, and the boys inherited the publishing company, which has "Wake Up Little Susie" and "Rocky Top." Yeah, all of those big songs. Dream, yeah. So anyway, that's where I met Francis Preston, my old boss at BMI. I was representing the artists. you know, every board, like the GMA or the CMA, the Country Music Association, has Vince Gill, who as their go-to guy, and he's the artist representative. And so we got, I think the GMA, the Gospel Music Association, got it from the Country Music Association. And we've had everybody from Amy Grant, Michael W. Smith, Joe Moscheo, and so, you know. So we're there, and we're representing we're representing the artists. So I get up to do this is a funny story, Nathan. This is a funny story. So I get up and do a report, and Frances Preston is chairman of the board. And I thought, what? Frances Preston is chairman of the board? And so she hears me give this report, and she offered me a job at BMI. I thought, wow. But before she would give you the job, she invited me to I was her guest at a lot of things. She wanted to see how I interacted with different people. And also, so she and her husband take us, me and my then wife, my second wife, to Hugo's in the Hyatt Regency. It was the gourmet room at the Hyatt Regency at the time. So we're there talking, and so she says, and I'd like to make you an offer. I'd like you to come to work for BMI, and I'll pay you $38,000. And I said, is that a week or a month? Is that a week or a month? I said, because I just had $15,000 last weekend. I blew it in a weekend in Vegas. I mean, you know, $38,000 for a year. She said, it's a year, you smart ass. She said, yeah. She calls me a smart ass. I said, what? Yes. Frances called me that. And so I said, well, okay. Is it for a year? I said, that doesn't sound like a lot of money. She said, and then her husband said, well, you get your insurance and you get a car to drive and you get all these perks. And you know, it's a great job. And then Frances jumped in and said, and I'll move you along as quickly as I can. And you'll become, with the title, then you'll get more money. So I said, okay. So I took it. I never had a job before. This is a sit-down gig, you know, where I had to go every day. The first day, you're gonna love this. The first day, Frances said, what are you doing this afternoon? I said, oh, whatever you tell me to do. She said, well, we're going to a funeral. So I get in her car, and after the funeral, and I'm dressed, I think I'm looking good, but I got a brown suit on and brown shoes and kind of a cream colored shirt and a tie to match. And she said, lose the brown suit. I said, what? Yeah, lose the brown suit. She said, we only wear, at BMI, we only wear gray and black and blue, navy blue, and only black shoes. I said, oh, excuse me. So I said, so then I asked her, I said, well, are you gonna buy my clothes? No, BMI doesn't buy your clothes. But you have to dress up. But she said, my theory is, if you're giving money away, you need to look like you need to be. If you're gonna be important, you need to look important, you know, that old joke. Anyway, there you go. Yeah, and I was, you know, I'm a permanent board member now because I was the president and the chairman of the board. And you had to be a volunteer to volunteer your time to be president and chairman, and then you became a permanent board member, which was PBM, permanent board member, I guess, yeah. Yeah, and so there's one guy who was a paid employee, and he tried to get in, and I complained about it. I said, he can't be a permanent board member, he's on salary. Yeah, well, I'm sorry, it's a volunteer thing. So, and I saw a lot of changes. I saw people coming and going, and I saw the industry change from Southern gospel, and then it became contemporary, and then it became very urban. And I managed BB and CC for a while, and BB and CC Wine-Ins, and so I was into all that. But it just it's taken its toll on Christian music, believe me. And the Gospel Music Association is about out of business. They about went out of business and went under because of it. But anyway, there you go.
Your greatest career accomplishment.
The greatest career accomplishment. My greatest career accomplishment would have to be now, at this age, still traveling and singing background to Elvis music. I guess meeting Elvis Presley was my greatest career, and that it's lasted 40 years is something else. Yeah. That it?
Yes.
I have a question.
Go, please.
Yeah, so I'm wondering, from somebody that was kind of raised, or kind of grew up doing Southern gospel and really being grounded that way, when you saw this societal change that was occurring during the Vietnam War and things, this time of social unrest and just social searching really for something that was more fulfilling, the evolution of Christian music as it was kind of progressing from this very Southern gospel church oriented and then becoming much more organic in that it was kind of filling this hole that people had because of everything that was happening socially or in society. What was kind of how did that happen? Or, what was your opinion of how
Well,
that came about?
there's guys that came along like Michael W. and Stephen Curtis who were very topical, and they wrote songs about, the conflicts of life and how it related to meant anything to them, because they had a purpose in mind, that they thought they were curing all ills. But I had a different approach myself personally. I liked being a Christian entertainer. I wanted to entertain the people because I thought that mothers and fathers had enough watching television and enough turmoil in their life that they needed to be entertained on the weekends. And as long as you kept it clean and you could do that. So that's where I was coming from, but I don't know that that's the answer either. But
No, it's your experience. I think it's amazing.
yeah, so.
And I think it's interesting that even though Elvis was when you talk about your experience with Elvis, here's somebody that was so
Oh yeah.
accepted in the mainstream, and yet it
He
seems
loved gospel music.
Yeah.
Loved it. Do you have the battery in?
Yeah, I've been rolling.
Oh, you really?
This is all good. Yeah, this is all good.
Elvis was amazing guy because he remembers his roots, but he was very experimental. He was into numerology, he was into Eastern religions, and he tried everything. So right before he died, maybe a year before he died, he played a date in Huntsville, Alabama. And that is the same time the Tyndale Bible came out, the Living Bible, which in those days, it was like in more plain English than it was. And so I wrote in the book, and I drove down, it was only 2 hours. And everybody was glad to see me, and this was after we had worked with him. So everybody was glad to see me, so after the show, I went to his hotel, and I know that he always had a hotel because Colonel Parker would take the second floor, and Elvis would take the third floor, the whole floor, and with security guards at the elevators. and at the entrances and, you know, the stairwells and everything. So I went up the elevator and I got stopped, and they called in and said, "There's a guy, Joe Moscheo, out here, and he wants to see Elvis." So I saw Sonny and Red and Lamar and all of Chuck, Charlie Hodge, and so I went in and I gave Elvis the Bible. I said, "You need to quit looking around for stuff." I said, "Because all the answers are in this book. All you have to do is read it. Quit looking. This is where you need to look. All the answers are in here." And he hugged me and, you know, embraced me, and I left. But when he died, this book is still in his bedroom upstairs at Graceland, and with my little writing in it. Yeah, and they showed it. It's amazing. So I was, at least I hope I had some influence. But everybody was trying to get to Elvis. I mean, you know, they were trying to influence him or trying to change him, but you know, there's a verse that I quoted in my a verse from the Bible that I quoted in my book. "Raise up a child in the way he should go, and he will never deviate from that way," or whatever it says. I can't quote it exactly, but it's to those, you know, raise up a kid the way you want him, and then he won't ever change. If you know, and it's true. I think Elvis loved his mother. He was so benevolent to his mother. I mean, it was a beautiful thing. It really was. So that's it.
Do you have any questions for Joe?
Yeah.
How do you like your coffee?
Like Halle Berry?
No, like Lori.
Like
See,
Lori?
that's a new one. Thank you, Joe.
You're welcome, baby.
That's enough questions.
Oh,
Joe, this is priceless.
I don't know.
Joe, I need to know the day of this, though. I just need.
I got so many stories,
I
David.
know, I just need
I
another
mean,
session.
I could.
I mean, I don't want to grab it all in one, but.
I can go for days. I got stories out the gazoo, as they say. You know, I just got a lot of stories. I'm very lucky that I'm in. I told Chuck today, I've fallen, in the past year, I've fallen 8 times, and I had 2 wrecks in my car. Totaled my car one time, and the other time I just got the car out, and I'm sitting at a red light in Green Hills, and a guy rams me from the back. He's tried to stop, but it was an older guy. It was a 6th, 7th-day Adventist guy. He was going to church on Saturday, and he said, "I'm late, so here's my card," and you know, and he said I stepped on the brake and my foot slipped off and it hit the gas pedal, and he rammed into me real hard. And so, I'm in a car it's a Toyota that falls apart if you hit it. It does. Everything falls off it. It's crazy. And the engine is there and the transmission and everything. It's like a breakaway thing, you know. It just lays out on it's like a transformer or whatever, you know. Yeah. So that's it.
Joe, where do you go from here now? You've seen it all. Where now, in this part of your life?
I want to retire, Nathan. I really do. I'm tired. I don't feel like traveling. I don't feel like getting on another airplane. And the airplanes are getting smaller. The seats are getting smaller, and it seems like it's taking longer to get there with the jet stream and everything else. You know, going that way, it's okay. Coming back, you're doing a headwind. It takes longer to get back. Anyway, I just want to retire. I want the simple life. I want to get away from it all. I don't want any more limos, or I don't want any more people. I just want to do what I want to do. If I want to sleep, I want to sleep. But I get up early, 5 to 5:30 every morning, and I go up in my room and I sit in. I got a big chair, and I got a TV, and I got my computer on a desk, and I got all this memorabilia around. I enjoy it, but I wanna go to Italy. I want to retire. I'm going to Italy. I'm moving out of the United States.
What do you think it would take for gospel music to have the longevity and stamina to last into the next generation?
I think the artists, I think sincere, I think that I love, people are funny. They know they can tell by your presentation whether you're serious or not. And you have to be honest and open with the people, you do. You can't, I'm not gonna mention any names, but they don't want any plastic hippies anymore, you know what I mean? I mean, you don't want any, I've been there myself, I don't. But yeah, I think guys like Stephen Curtis, who is a good friend of mine, he's a sweet guy. And I think he's serious about his music and his outreach, and I think that cultivate more artists like that. But I don't know the industry can do it, and I don't think the labels want to do it. They want artists that sell music. They don't want any message, or they don't, you know. So maybe at a grassroots level, I don't know. Maybe that's where you were going with it.
Here's one last question, Joe. Your family's gonna see this someday, your children, your grandchildren. What's something that you can impart to them? You know, just to...
Well, you know, I don't know if you know, my oldest grandson is 34, and he has 2 children, so I'm a great grandfather. I have a granddaughter, a great granddaughter, and a great grandson. And all I say is, you know, and I'm saying this from my heart because I can honestly say it. Don't leave Jesus out of your life. Don't do it. It's not worth it. It's none of it is worth it. You know, how many times have you heard people dying from drink over alcohol or drug abuse or something, you know? And you say, what's the matter with you? Don't you know? I mean, there's another guy in your band that just died last week. Why are you still doing that? And it's like one of my daughters still smokes. And my sister died 3 years ago from smoking. And I said, why are you still smoking? Well, it's a habit, Daddy. I can't quit. I said, well, ask Jesus to help you. That's all it takes. So that's where I am. I learned too late. I'm 76, and I made all of the mistakes. So the kids, it's boring, really. It's boring. Everything they've done, I've already done. I said, why don't you use me as an example? Hey, you know, hey, I got a letter from my father that I have to read to you. It is a riot.
I got it.
Have you got it?
I got it.
Oh, Nathan.
I
So-
read it, Joe.
Did you read it?
It's so typical, older
Oh, yeah.
person, how they feel, you know, and about.
So my cousin Anna in Italy, where I go and her family, she came to visit my mom and dad. And my dad is a retired minister. Oh yeah, let me read this. It's 1984. Oh yeah, thanks Nathan.
Are they dirty?
No, it doesn't matter. They're cleaner than mine.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah.
Also, too, when we're done with this, can I just get you playing a song on the piano just to...
Sure.
Yeah, awesome. Okay.
Anyway, so my cousin Anna comes to live with my folks for about 6 weeks. After she left, my dad wrote this letter, and he says, call Joe. I was working at BMI. He said, call Joe and tell him to come to the house. So Mama calls me and she said, I made your favorite macaroni pie and everything. Can you come out? I said, yeah, I'll try. So I went out to their house. They lived in Brentwood in a little apartment. So my father says, so you'd like to visit Nashville and the Mosqueos? Well, good. Please do not be offended if we ask that you make plans to stop at a motel or a hotel. Yes, he wouldn't even let them come to their house because we have had 2 bad experiences lately that tested us in a very extreme way. We both have heart problems and we cannot handle difficult personalities nor company, whether family, Christian friends, or otherwise. So I'm going to continue. Mrs. Moscheo, that's my mom, was 72. This is dated January, March 1st, 1984. So this is my mom was 72 at that time. She is under doctor's care. She cannot handle any additional work. She needs lots of help. She barely makes it each day. Company brings problems, additional expenses. Some have unbearable habits. Some make all kinds of demands. They want to be taken everywhere. They take over the control of the TV set and other comforts of the house. Often take too long in the bathroom, the only bathroom in our little home. Eating schedules are disrupted. The simplicity of our lives are changed because the outsider takes over control. They criticize our style of living, the slowness and the inactivity of senior citizens. And so my dad goes on to say, I'm also under doctor's care, and I'll be 71. He was a little younger than my mother. I am slower, like some TV programs and likewise some radio programs. I am not interested in driving too much, so forget about it. They put a strain on our budget and interrupt our simple daily routine because they cause stress and pressure on us. We have been, listen to this is the line that got me. I said, you can't send this letter. I wouldn't let him send it. We have been disagreed with, shouted at, insulted, humiliated, overpowered, and shut up against our will. Visitors expect to live in your house as they do in theirs. They take control of the TV set. They sit in any chair they want to. I mean, come on. How dare you? In any way they please, they cough loudly, and they make guttural sounds, which bring extreme stress on our nerves. Okay, and we eat food not to our liking. Some have been bossy, disrespectful, demanding, disagreeable, and wicked. Wicked. I cannot. Our home is too small for any company. You're welcome to come to Nashville, but please do it on your own. That's my dad. Bless his heart. Yeah, so my kids call these, I've written a couple of these myself, and my kids say, oh, I'm not getting one of your famous letters, am I? No. Anyway, I love my mom and dad, and I at the time that they died about 10 years ago, not too far apart, I called my mother every day. I called my mother every day. I thought I was the only 65-year-old that was calling his mother every day. I still call, and not because she demanded it, but because I wanted to. I wanted to tell her I loved her and I appreciated her. And my mother took in ironing to give me piano lessons. They were very expensive at the time. My mother took in ironing and she stretched, I don't know if you know these curtains, the lace curtains, they starched them and then they'd put them up on a stretcher and they would dry and they'd be stiff as a board, like this. Yeah, and so my mother, she did that and she got $3 or something, but $3 in the 40s was pretty good, I guess. I don't know. So, yeah, and my dad, they sacrificed a lot for me, and I thank him every day for it. My dad, I gave him credit cards. I said, if you need anything for gas for your car, or you need tires, or use this credit card. And so he took it, and he wouldn't charge anything. Anyway, that's good. You know what I mean, Nate?
Bro.
Huh? You've been there, right?
Call them every day.
Every day.
Call them every day.
Every day. You need to do it. That's, I think, I told Nathan, I did a piano thing for Christmas this year, and I sent it to my kids and to some friends. And I made 2 versions because I talked on it. And my mother, the last year of her life, she laid on her back, flat on her back. And she laid flat on her back and was bedridden. And she called me one day, or when I talked to her, she said, make me some piano music. I said, what? You know, my favorite songs, make me some piano music, and then when I lay here, I can listen to you. Because she loved the prophets, the old prophets, and she loved the Imperials, only to listen to the piano introductions. You know, yeah, but and so she was a big fan. But anyway, I did a thing, and I sent it to my mother, and I can't find it. My sister's gone, my brother's gone, my mother and father, I'm the only one left, and nobody can find it. So I had a chance to do a new version, but it was a shorter version because I just don't have the chops anymore. I don't play. So anyway, I sent something to my kids, and I said, this is for you, Merry Christmas. And I did the same thing for my friends. It's awful. It's awful to get old and to think about all these things, you know.
Yeah, but what life is bright.
I've had a great life. I've been really blessed. I mean, God has been so good to me, and I don't even deserve it. I mean, I don't. You know, my father thought I was called to preach, and I would do things on purpose, bad things. I mean, really bad. And I'd say, see, God, you don't want me, do you?
Proving them wrong, right?
You don't want me.
Oh yeah, like we could do anything as bad as David and Paul and Peter and
No, huh?
these guys were awful.
Yeah, they were bad.
They make us look like, you know.
Oh yeah, they were really bad. I never had anybody killed, but
Exactly, yeah. Especially a friend of mine and, you know, send him to, you know,
yeah, right.
yeah. Hey Nathan, are you done?
Yeah, I'm just gonna get
Amazing.
a piano thing here. and-
If I don't get a picture.
Yeah,
with him,
absolutely.
I will absolutely kill.
Around the time nothing's ever been found.
I'm ready to roll. What do you got for me? I remember that one.
Okay. Georgia. Boy, this is a great piano night.
Great.
Yeah.
Good old hymn, Joe.
to do that. Woo!
Joe, you still got it, man.
No, I can't.
That's good. Isn't it?
It's beautiful. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, remember all the
Okay.
What else?
Song you ever wrote?
The first song I ever wrote?
Play a little bit of it.
I know when I I don't know if that's the first song. Yeah. Let's see, wait a minute. No. Well, you know, what? Oh, that's a Larry Norman song. Well, you know a pretty story. It's Sweet Song of Salvation. I don't know. I never play anymore, so I don't have a clue.
Awesome.
I love that era of great piano players always know how to do that slip note.
Oh, you do.
Amazing.
It's from the old.
Floyd Kramer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know who Floyd Kramer gets credit for, but you know it was a blind guy in Nashville that really invented that.
Really?
Pig
Pig
Hargis.
Pig Robertson.
Yeah.
I thought he's better
So
than Floyd.
did he steal it from Floyd, or, I mean, Floyd stole it from him?
Floyd got
Floyd stole it. Floyd got it
Floyd stole it from him.
Yeah.
on the first date. You know,
Credit.
the first date. This is oh, things are bad and you did it when you needed it.
He played on all the Orchestra.
Don't you worry, he's on his way. Okay, that's it.